Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee for mayor in New York City. There has been this sort of frustration among progressives who are very excited about his candidacy that many mainstream members of the Democratic Party refuse to endorse him, right? Andy Cuomo's still sitting out there as a candidate on another ballot line. The current sitting mayor, Eric Adams, who was also once a Democrat, he's going to be on another ballot line. There's been this talk with Curtis Sliwa, who is the official Republican nominee, went public today and said he's been offered money by various big donors to get out of the race. Essentially, he's saying he's been offered bribes to drop out of the race. If there was a one-on-one Cuomo-Mamdani, polls are showing it would be competitive. And I think it would be quite competitive if it actually happened, right? If Adams got out and Sliwa got out. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And I still don't know if Cuomo wins, right? Cuomo was the flawed candidate here. It's why Mamdani's the nominee. But what's been interesting is, you saw a form of it when Kamala Harris did her first interview on her new book, 107 Days. We've gone through that. No sense rehashing what's in the book right now. That's in the previous episode if you want to know more about what I think on that. But she was asked about her thoughts on that primary. And I'm just going to read you the transcript because it's quite something. Here's Maddow. What do you think of him and his candidacy? And what do you think of mainline Democratic shyness and agitation about the prospect that he's going to win? Harris. Look, as far as I'm concerned, he's the Democratic nominee and he should be supported. Maddow. Do you endorse his candidacy? Harris. I support the Democrat in the race, sure. But let me just say this. He's not the only star. I know that he's in New York, and I know New Yorkers think they're the center of the world, and here we are in New York having this interview. She wouldn't say his name. Here's the thing. I'm going to sort of torture a Yoda-ism, right? Whenever you're in doubt, there's usually an answer in Star Wars to help you out here, right? One of my favorite Yoda lines is that there is no try. There is, do or not do. There is no try, right? That's one of his, I think, when he's training Luke Skywalker to be a Jedi. Well, I sort of feel the same way about Mamdani, right? You're either in or you're out. I support the Democrat. That you could have gotten away with the day after the primary. Was not my first choice, second choice, or third choice. But at the end of the day, I'm going to support the Democrat. When you've gone this long without endorsing, you clearly are uncomfortable with having a Democratic socialist nominee for the Democratic Party. By the way, how do you deal with something like that? Let me read you how a Democrat who does not want to support him has put it straightforward. Josh Gottheimer, Democrat from New Jersey, he wrote an opinion piece and he said, look, he's a believer in the big tent approach of the Democratic Party. He said it's one of our greatest strengths. But then he puts this, if we allow extremist views like those of Democratic socialists into the tent, it will blow right over. It noted that the piece mentioned Mamdani by name, and it no doubt really ticked off a lot of progressive members of Congress and progressive donors and progressive supporters. And Josh Gottheimer has been a part of, I think, the Problem Solvers Caucus. He's definitely a centrist Democrat. There's no doubt about it. But he at least sort of took a stand, and he explained why he couldn't support him, right? Either you want the Democratic Socialists in the tent or you don't. And I think it's a fair debate to be having. I understand the concern that Josh Gottheimer says. I understand the case that an AOC or Bernie Sanders would make. No. Hey, you want to have as broad of a coalition as you want, and this is a growing segment of the Democratic Party. There's plenty of polling showing that the idea of socialism is getting more traction among Democrats. Now, you know my thesis on this. I just think if you get branded with the S word, you're never going to win the presidency. You're not going to be a national party because the Sun Belt will be off limits to the Democrats. It just will. I'm not saying the policies that Mamdani's putting out there are unpopular. It is the branding of socialism. It is a bad brand. It is not recoverable by putting the words Democrat in front of it. It is an unrecoverable brand. Hard stop.
There's a reason results matter more than promises. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan has become America's largest injury law firm. For the last 35 years, they've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. It includes cases where insurance companies offered next to nothing, short of shortchanging, seeing if they could get away with it. And Morgan & Morgan fought back, and they won millions. In Pennsylvania, one client was awarded $26 million. It was a staggering 40 times the amount that the insurance company originally offered. That offer, $650,000, whatever it took to sort of get away without paying. So with more than 1,000 lawyers across the country, Morgan & Morgan knows how to deliver for everyday people. So if you're injured, you're looking for a lawyer, check out forthepeople.com/ToddCast or dial pound law, pound 529 on your cell phone. And remember, all law firms are not the same. So give Morgan & Morgan a look. Their fee is free unless they win. So you got to just sort of say, but to be mealy-mouthed about it, you end up ticking off everybody. She couldn't mention it. She endorsed Mamdani without mentioning his name, meaning Kamala Harris. That's not making progressives happy. And it's certainly not making the Gottheimers of the world who are nervous about this happy. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are totally, at this point, if Schumer or Jeffries comes out and supports him, it is okay for me if you are wondering, is there a gun behind their back that I can't see? Is this a hostage video when they put it out? And I'm sure if they do it, they'll do it so they don't have to take questions, which means it'll come across as some terrible video. If at this point, if you haven't endorsed Mamdani, it means you're uncomfortable. So say the word. I get it. If not him, who? And if you live in New York City, what are you supposed to do if you're Hakeem Jeffries? Now, he's also in the uncomfortable position where he wants to be Speaker of the House, and he needs the votes of all Democrats of all stripes that get elected. And there's plenty of swing state Democrats who think socialism is a piece of carry-on baggage for the party that is just too heavy to carry over the finish line. Maybe you can survive in a midterm, but it's going to be awfully hard in 2028. But the absurdity of basically not doing it at this point. I think we've all learned that I do think the voter respects authenticity. I think we all know that. I think the voter will respect disagreeing if you're straightforward about it and you explain yourself. But trying to sort of hem and haw and trying to have it both ways. Well, of course, I support the Democratic nominee. Again, you could have gotten away with that in the first couple of days. That could have been a standard answer. It wasn't my first choice for the primary, but I believe in standing by the party. And if the party wants to support them, I'm not going to stop it. That's how you could have gotten out of this and done it on day one. But it's pretty clear that they're waiting to see if this is ever going to turn into a one-on-one. But of course, the original sin here, and you know how I love to throw that phrase around, the original sin here is looking the other way when Cuomo came in as if he was a good idea as a candidate. So I look at both Schumer and Jeffries on this one and think, and Hochul, the three of them, I'll throw in Letitia James. If you're the leaders of the Democratic Party, how did you just look the other way when Andy Cuomo decided to show up? And how did you guys naively think that he was going to be able to win that primary? I mean, it is one of the more astonishing developments, but I do think at this point, do or don't do. Explain yourself, but don't do this mushy middle stuff. And in some ways, I'm sure Kamala Harris wasn't fully thinking that she was going to get asked the Mamdani question. Although if you watch a little bit of MSNBC, you should have known that it might be coming. Maybe she wasn't prepared for it, but I don't think it served her well on that front. And look, she was possibly speaking as a party leader who didn't want to offend any Democrat of any stripe, which I understand. But you need to be a little bit clear-eyed. And if you're going to endorse them, endorse them. Hochul did it. I think she had her own political reasons to do it. She's getting challenged. She could have a serious primary challenge from her former lieutenant governor. And the challenge would come from the left. But it's watching this sort of Democratic hand-wringing, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in the party for people looking for confidence in a Democratic Party that still doesn't know who it is, still feels pretty leaderless. And in some ways, this Mamdani hand wringing is only symbolic of the problems the party has. And look, until they have a nominee in 28, I think we're going to have a lot of this sort of a lot of these conversations about, boy, there's Democrats don't know how to row in the same direction these days.